Hey everybody, it's Aaron, your favorite fair market advocate. Recently, a couple things have come to my attention that I have found really interesting, and I wanted to share these items with you. Um, the first thing I want to do though is I want to talk a little bit about FINRA and what their mission statement is. And so I'm on the About FINRA page on their website, and it says here that FINRA is dedicated to protecting investors and safeguarding market integrity in a manner that facilitates vibrant capital markets. And remember, we're talking about safeguarding market integrity here. That's FINRA's role. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over what I found, which is called an AWC, an acceptance, waiver, and consent. And just to briefly explain what this is to those who don't know what it is. Essentially, when you get caught um, committing fraud or getting in trouble or breaking any rules, um, FINRA then has the authority to fine, suspend, or bar brokers and firms from the industry. And then, depending on the violation, a couple things can happen. So, first is that there could be a formal enforcement hearing. That's not what we're going to be talking about. Um, what could also be is the signing of an acceptance, waiver, and consent. And so, what is this form? Well, when you sign this form, essentially what occurs is three things. So, first is that um, you're accepting the recitation of violations. So, that doesn't mean that you're saying you're guilty, doesn't mean that you're saying you're innocent. It simply means you agree that FINRA has written these things on a piece of paper. Second is that you're waiving your right to a hearing in any appeal. So you can't, at a later time after you've signed it, come back and fight these things to have them like removed from your record or anything. Like once you sign it, you've signed it and that's it. Um, and the last thing that occurs when you sign is you're consenting to the penalty described. So at the end of this AWC, and I'm going to walk over an AWC with you guys, but at the end of it, it's going to say what the penalty for all of the infractions they found were, and you're agreeing to whatever that penalty is. So whether it's a fine or even if you have to close up shop, like that's what you're agreeing to. So I guess the first thing I need to do is show you how you find these things. And so they're all on FINRA's website. It's public information. All you do is you go to rules and guidance and you go to disciplinary actions. And when you get on this page, you're going to have this nice little form, and you can search a couple different ways by a firm name specifically, by an individual's name, or by an action date. And so I just, out of curiosity, I just looked at January's, and the one that I found we're going to look at is in January. And this is going to populate all of their, recent disciplinary actions. And so we're just going to go back to a couple days ago. So what is it? Today's the 29th. This one was posted on the 26th. Here it is. This is the one we're going to look at. And it was posted on the 26th. It's the respondent, the person who signed it, is DriveWealth Institutional. They used to be known as Cuttone. I hadn't heard of this company before I started looking into it, so it's all new for me. So I'm going to pop open this file. And now I have my own version that's highlighted, but just to show you, we're looking at the same thing. Here's it's to DriveWealth, CRD number 33038. And so here's the one that I've highlighted, DriveWealth 33038. Now, I'm not going to go over the entire 8 pages of violations here, but I am going to talk about a couple key violations specifically and what the punishment for these violations were, because I think that's really important when we're talking about market integrity. So let's first kind of go over what we're looking at here. DriveWealth is accepting, they're submitting this letter of acceptance, waiver, and consent. So FINRA gave this letter to DriveWealth, and then in turn, DriveWealth signed it and sent it back. And so now it's here for the public to see. Now, if it's accepted, FINRA will not bring any future actions against the respondent, DriveWealth, alleging violations based on the same factual findings described in this AWC. So all of the things in here, by agreeing to the penalty that they've agreed to, are disappearing, is what's occurring. So what's the background? Who is DriveWealth? So DriveWealth, known as Cuttone, until February 17th of 2021, that's when they changed from Cuttone to DriveWealth. That's who we're talking about. And what they do is the respondent, DriveWealth again, specializes in execution services for institutional and broker-dealer clients. So they are execution specialists. Like, let's be very clear. That's their job. That's what they do. What I'm going to start going over now is the actual overview. And there's three main infractions that I want to talk about. And so the first one is right here at the top of the overview. So the respondent failed to obtain locates in connection with 179,778 short sale transactions. As many of you are most likely aware, short selling is a very popular topic in this day and age, especially with what's going on currently in our markets. But what's even more popular is failures to obtain locates. So what we're quite literally talking about here is naked short selling. They are selling short into the market without having the shares borrowed to do so. And so the interesting thing about this is that it's not actually that they did it. It's that they did it 179,778 times during this, 2-year period. But what's really interesting about this document is that while it lists all these transactions, it doesn't actually tell you the size of these transactions. So, for all we know, each one of these transactions, it could have been 1 share, 10 shares, 1,000 shares, or 1,000,000 shares. We have no idea, and this document doesn't tell us. And I feel that that's really concerning. And there's a couple other things in the overview to talk about. And the next one is that the firm did not establish, maintain, or enforce written procedures reasonably designed to prevent the execution of 829 short sale transactions during a circuit breaker. So not only are they naked shorting into the market, but they're also shorting into the market during circuit breakers. Like these are all really big things. Like you or I, if we were just to log into our broker, whatever platform you're using to trade with, you would not be able to do any of these things. But these, remember, these execution specialists, they can do these things, and that's what they have done here. And so there's one more number I want to talk about. So, what have we established so far? That 180,000 times they naked short sold into the market. 829 times they short sold into circuit breakers. And the next number that I found that was really interesting, where is it? Is here. From February 13th, 2017 to September 11th, 2018, the respondent submitted 569,797 trade reports to different trading facilities, or reporting facilities rather, with W trade modifiers. The W modifier is used to indicate that the price of a reported trade may bear no relation to the current market and is required to be reported if a trade occurs at a price based on an average weighting or another special pricing formula. The respondent incorrectly reported the W modifier on the trade reports for its net trades, even though none were priced at an average weighted price or with special pricing formula. And so this 567,797 trade reports, by the way, as you can see here, this constitutes approximately 92% of their total trade reporting obligation during this period. 92%, all of their trade reportings were incorrect or fraudulent, as one might say. And this is all just really, like, these are really large numbers. These are huge charges. Like, no one at the level of like retail traders especially would ever be able to facilitate fraud to this scale. Like these are massive. I mean, they're probably small in compared to some of our other favorite, market participants. But regardless, like this is a big deal. And so here's the interesting thing. So there's these three numbers here, right? There's the 180K naked short sells, there's the 829 short sells during circuit breakers, and then there's these 569,000 incorrectly identified trades. So what's the punishment for this, right? Like that's what this AWC is, right? Is the organization we're talking about. They're not saying that they're innocent or guilty of this, but they are saying that whatever the punishment that I'm about to show you, they're going to pay that. They're accepting this punishment. That seems reasonable to them. So let's talk about that. So the first punishment is that they're getting a censure. Now, is this a punishment? Yeah, kind of. A censure is essentially FINRA telling them, hey, all of these things are really bad. You should feel really bad, and don't do these bad things again. And DriveWealth in this scenario is saying, okay, sure, we agree. These things are bad. We won't do those things again if we did do them in the first place, of course. But I want to know, what did they pay? Right? And I think that's what all of us want to know when we're talking about market integrity and we're talking about fair markets. What did they pay to commit fraud of this scale for years? And by the way, if I didn't make it clear, this was from April 2016 to September of 2018. These dates are actually really important. We're going to talk about them in just a moment. From February 27 to September 18, like they did this for years. So they got the censure and they also paid a $100,000 fine. Oh man, I would love to call this a slap on the wrist, but it simply doesn't do it justice. They committed fraudulent transactions in the scope of hundreds of thousands. And we don't even know, again, how much money was made, how much money was lost, in what volume that these trades were executed in. All we know is that for all of them, they're going to pay $100,000 for it. I mean, we're paying absolutely nothing to break the law here. This is not a slap on the wrist. I would like to call this a gentle and delicate kiss on the cheek, because that's what this is. Let's be realistic. And so then, I wanted to dive a little deeper into this. I wanted to figure out, well, how does one get this gentle and delicate kiss on the cheek? Who do they have to know to be served with such dignity to get these things? So if you scroll down to the bottom of the document, you're going to see who signed. So for DriveWealth, the signer is Sean Gilmartin. And for FINRA, the signer is Carly Kostakos. Now, I didn't look into Carly Kostakos, but I did look into Sean Gilmartin. So let's go to DriveWealth's website. So here I am. I'm just on DriveWealth.com. We're going to go to the company page, who we are, and if we scroll all the way down to the bottom, we're going to find Sean Gilmartin. So this is Sean Gilmartin. He is the Chief Compliance Officer of DriveWealth. And here you can read his bio. This is his history and why they hired him and why they think he's a great fit for the company. But one of the most important things that I found, it's right up here at the top. He was a director of regulation at the New York Stock Exchange. And I thought, well, that is interesting, isn't it? So here's his LinkedIn. Let's look at it. So here's Sean Gilmartin. And if we scroll down, we'll see that he is currently the Chief Compliant Officer at DriveWealth. He's only been there for 11 months. So, this is a relatively new position. But a little bit further down, he was at the New York Stock Exchange as in regulation from January 2015 to July 2017. And I thought those dates were really interesting, because if we come back to the document, those are the dates that these things occurred in. So from July 2016 to April 2017, I mean, there's a few different ones in here, but they're in that range, and they go past that range as well. So let's keep that in mind. But a lot of these things occurred during the time that Mr. Gilmartin, here's 2016 to 2017. But a lot of these things occurred while Mr. Gilmartin was working at the New York Stock Exchange as a regulator. So it was his responsibility to ensure that these things did not occur in our markets, yet they did occur. And then, here we are all these years later, and, he now no longer works in regulation at the New York Stock Exchange, but he now works as the Chief Compliance Officer for a company that has received an acceptance waiver and compliance, or in consent rather, for the issues that occurred while he was working at the New York Stock Exchange. And now I'm going to be very clear. I'm not saying that Mr. Sean Gilmartin here is responsible for these infractions, or that he helped facilitate the naked shorting of hundreds of thousands of shares and the misrepresentation of shares and short selling into circuit breakers. I'm not saying that he did those things, and I'm not saying that he helped facilitate them, but I am saying that it's suspicious. And as an investor in our markets, these are the types of things that I'm really curious about. Like, again, to bring this full circle, and we go to the About FINRA page, FINRA is dedicated to protecting investors and safeguarding market integrity in a manner that facilitates vibrant capital markets. And I have to say, the more I look into these things, the more I feel like this could not be further from the truth. Um, I feel that there needs to be more questions that are answered here. There needs to be more information that's put in these AWCs, and we need to know specifically who facilitated these trades. And I just want to be very clear. I just stumbled upon this, right? Like I went to rules and guidance. I went to disciplinary actions. I just looked at the ones in January. It just happened to be near the top. Like that's the only reason I ended up looking at this. It's just here. Like it's just there, and there's hundreds of these. Like you can go look at these things, and I highly encourage you do, because these are the reasons that investors in our markets are having questions about, are our markets fair, and are the regulators in charge of ensuring these our markets are fair, are they really doing their job? And when I find things like this, my opinion, granted it's not factor anything, it's just my opinion, is that our regulators are not doing the job. And so, yeah, I just wanted to share this with you. I thought it was interesting. I hope that you all find it interesting. And I hope that I see you guys also make videos just like this, where you go look at these AWCs and go look at what the FINRA is saying that people did, and go look at the charge that they're getting for it. Because I'm sorry, but paying $100,000 for hundreds of thousands of fraudulent transactions in our market, it's simply not acceptable. And these things need to change. So I'm going to leave you with that for the day. I hope this was enlightening. If you have any questions about how I find these or how I look them up, feel free to post in the comments or hit me up on LinkedIn or something. More than happy to answer what I know. But again, like I'm just a retail trader. I'm not a professional. This is not. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just your everyday Joe like you, and I find this all very concerning. So thank you for your time, and have a wonderful day.